Well, it's good to speak with you again, Tom. Today, I look forward to hearing your views on a topic called assurance in uncertainty. Can you start by providing a brief background of yourself?
Yes, I'm Tom Tanel. I'm the president of CATTAN Services Group. Uh, we are a consulting and training firm that conducts logistics and supply chain management from a strategic and tactical level. We do that on a global basis. And I have been involved in this area for at least 38 years.
And can you talk about what is the meaning of assurance in uncertainty?
Well, I think as ever since 9/11 and as we moved into the 21st century, we seem to fall on the fact that what we used to rely on in the past to forward ourselves as far as a forecast of what happens was just look at past history. Well, now we're dealing with a future that's really based upon more weight on what's happening presently than what's happened in the past. And I guess that has created some uncertainty, especially when you're talking a continuing supply. And as we've expanded where things have become more global, we've extended and stretched our supply chains to the point where assuring the continuing supply may or not be something that's viable.
And can you talk about more about why is it needed?
I think for anyone here, purchasing suppliers who are sharing vital information and resources, today you have to have a good working business relationship, in particular with your allies, your partners, your preferred suppliers. And when I mention those types of categories, I would suggest from our experience, approximately 5 to 20% of your supply base accounts for 70 to 85% of your purchase spend or value. And those are probably the ones that you're most likely to worry about because they have the most impact on your success. So it's really more of we're talking a team process here, and we're talking promoting trust, support, and there's some type of codependency there.
Now, are there specific areas that you should focus on?
Yes, we feel that when you're forming contracts with suppliers, vendors, and contractors that may not be aligned with your organization, one of the things that, and they may not be able to grow the organization, that ultimately creates bottlenecks. That adds to your internal cost and conceivably can really hurt your company. So it's very important that we look at those four areas and we look at them as being supplier relationship management, otherwise known as SRM, strategic sourcing and category management, which isn't new, spend management and your analytics that go along with that, and supplier performance management, also known as SPM.
And can you talk about how this is implemented?
Yes, let's start with supplier relationship management first. A supplier relationship management focuses on the development of highly effective, mutually beneficial relationships with a handful of the organization's main suppliers. That can be by commodity group or service group. It can be across your supply chain. The main emphasis is what is your total value of your decisions across the extended supply chain. And probably, according to KPMG, it's not a universal corporate practice. Their research indicates that only half of all procurement functions currently do something like supplier relationship management. So that really entails a tiered procurement where you create a closer as well as more collaborative relationship with the key suppliers that supply your goods and services. And that should, in essence, uncover and realize added value, but reduce your risk between you and your supplier base.
And who should care about these four topics in particular?
Well, basically, the anybody involved in the procurement function and anybody at a CEO or COO level, including CFOs. Uh, Today with the advent of the chief procurement officer or chief purchasing officer, it's become important. And I think what a lot of companies don't realize is that suppliers are a source of knowledge, expertise, and assets that a company can leverage to gain competitive advantage when the proper relationships are put in place. So if your success is directly tied to your suppliers, should you invest in those relationships? I think another area that we should be concerned with is risk. Everybody talks about risk, and that's become the buzzword for the 21st century, but it's frequently overlooked in sourcing processes. It's even overlooked when people merge or acquire other organizations. They don't look at things. So I guess from a procurement or purchasing view, I would look at that there's a number of risks we should be considering. Financial risk, for example, what is the financial health and long-term viability of your supplier? Especially if you're engaged with them in a long-term relationship. Commercial risk, specific business and culture risks unique to that source of supply, especially in what they're providing you and what's happening. Technical risk, is this something you've done before, or that you have expertise, or is this something that's a new product or a new service? Logistics, those risks haven't gotten less, they've increased. As you extend the supply chain, we've increased things like issues like packaging, lead times, shipping modes that you can choose from. Even scheduling. What is my risk if the item is lost, delayed, or damaged? Today, something that we all have to consider is climate change related risk. What do those climate change risks relate to the supplier? What are those physical risks? I think most people could probably think about how unpredictable things are today. The Icelandic volcanic eruptions that resulted in ash clouds that blighted the airspace over many parts of Europe back in April, May of 2010. Something that had never really happened before, certainly not predicted. The effects of the earthquake and tsunami that happened in Japan, and the ongoing nuclear cleanup and power situation that's happening there. According to Automotive News, they said that supply chain management at Honda was stress tested, given that at least 113 of its key suppliers, were located in some of those affected areas. What do you do? How do you handle that? And the last risk, I think, that's of more concern today and becoming even more so, is importation or regulatory risk. Changes in different countries' legislations, the different free trade agreements that might exist out there, as well as the application of commercial law, everything from the Convention on International Sale of Goods to your own country's law, to even in some cases in Muslim countries, Sharia law that might be subjected to.
And my final question is, why is market intelligence important?
One of my favorites. I think sometimes people in purchasing really don't realize that when you're looking at market dynamics, your objective is to create a competitive leverage to figure out how best can I use my organization's strength to address the market. For example, if we're talking buying a commodity like paper, is that an indirect or an indirect type of a purchase? That's going to have an effect on your organization's needs or objectives. Are we talking someone who's an offset printer? Well, that'd be a direct type of purchase. But if you're talking a financial institution, it's more of an indirect type of purchase. Classification as to direct or indirect procurement is another way to categorize that purchase. Market intelligence allows you to get a clear differentiator in your ability to deliver savings and value to the company. And the reason that it's important will depend on various reasons that might be happening that are out there. But I think the big one that we should be concerned about is identifying who your top suppliers are, and also looking at historical and forecasted cost trends. I would venture to say that most people involved in purchasing procurement, probably since 2008, when you're talking what was known as a budget or budgeted costs, were probably most likely blown out of the water simply because people didn't forecast where costs were going and what was happening, simply because we're in a very volatile, uncertain environment. And the other thing I think that's important is the market size for how you understand how you can leverage potential individual suppliers and what is their current market share and what opportunities may exist or don't exist out there. So I think for everybody that's out there, the questions that are most important that you need to ask and have answered is, for whom are we buying? Who are your internal customers? From whom are we buying? What suppliers, contractors, vendors are we currently using? Who have we also used in the past? How are we buying? That could be anything from a purchase order to a contract to a blanket order. And what are we actually buying? Commodities, goods, services, etc.
And thank you, Tom, for sharing your insights today.
All right, thank you. And good to talk to you again.